Okay, so here's the starting point with our knife. We got to this point with an axe. So first, what I like to do is I like to get the sides done. So I'm gonna get my wood removed on the sides and the top to my line. So that's where how straight your lines are is important, because if you go to the lines and you're not straight, you're gonna have a wonky spoon. So I don't know if my lines are straight, I just kind of threw them on there. So what you're gonna want to do is constantly check with your eyes as you're carving the spoon to see if it looks straight or not to you as you do the sides. And you're going to want to continually to do that to make sure everything's straight as it can be, right? If you're already crooked, then you just can only make it as straight as you can. You can intentionally make it wonky at that point, give it some character. But I want everything to be straight, in line, straight with the bowl, and the same with the orientation this way. I want my bowl to be straight and in line with that on that plane. If that makes sense. I hope it does. That being said, I guess we can go over some carving techniques. Assuming that you don't know any of these carving techniques, go online and look up Swedish carving techniques, but I'll run through them really quick. So this one, put the spoon on your chest, take this hand like this, and you're going to use your left hand to push your knife. And this is a really good way to carve. So I'm in here and I'm just gonna push and if you keep the blade tilted outwards, so when you're cutting you want to slice, so hold your blade at an angle. Can I zoom in? No. Hold your blade at an angle. So now you'll get a slicing motion. See how the blade is slicing? You don't want to just push straight through. You can, right? But you're not slicing. If you just push straight through, you're just pushing. So by holding the blade at an angle, not only when you're coming down, you're forcing the knife to slice the wood, which is what you want. You want it to slice. And you're holding this blade out. So you're holding this blade outwards. So if for some reason you get a lot of force and you come in, you're not going to stab yourself, because your knife is going to be pointed out like this. So it's a safety mechanism. So you're not going to stab yourself. As to where if you're just holding it like this, right? Could be bad. So hold it out and slice. And I'm not sure what the name of this cut is, but I do this for the spoon handles. When you flip over the spoon, you're not going to be able to see your line, so you're just going to have to keep looking at it. You're going to be looking at the spoon constantly. To make sure everything's straight, square. Am I on the camera? See what I'm saying? Okay. So the next cut, I think we'll call this a push cut. It's going to take two hands and you're using your left thumb to push your blade. You can push the back of the blade, you can push the handle, and you're kind of making like a lever. Like this. And you can get a lot of fine control with that around the neck of the spoon. So that's a really good cut. Don't try not to overuse that cut because it can be bad for you. I'm sure if you're just a hobby guy, it won't matter, but it can cause some problems later down the road. And then there's the chest levers, chicken wing, chest lever, whatever you want to call it. You're gonna take your knife, this is just a more controlled method of doing this. See how erratic that is? So by doing this, you're getting more control and you're still getting the power. And you're still slicing. See how the blade's at an angle? There's a big knot right here. So when you need big power cuts, like to take these corners off, and it also should be said, you should probably wear a carving glove or some sort of protection. So there's that carving technique. Call it the chest lever or chicken wing or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we're going to start by doing the sides. This one will probably be a lot more boring than part one. This is more or less for you to fast forward to the end and be like, okay, yeah, so he carved the spoon with nothing but a mora and cheap tools. Don't try to take a lot of wood out at once. If you feel your knife digging into the wood, like it just wants to bury itself in the wood really deep, stop and go the other direction. Because you are going against the grain. And if you're going for a really nice finish, like these transition lines, like the neck of the spoon, you're going to get these parts where you're going to get this going on, where the wood isn't, it's just pulling and not cutting. And then you got to go the other direction to smooth it out, especially at the neck of a spoon. That's a good way to ruin a spoon because you're going to keep chasing it and then you're going to be too thin. So do it really lightly.
really light, and pull your blade out of the cut. Really light, and roll your knife up out of the wood, and you just want to try to take off one little layer at a time. And see how I did that? And there's this now. So we flip it around, do the same thing. So light. If you have like a really sharp knife, you can cheat this sometimes. See, look how much better that looks. Definitely for this, you do want your knife to be really sharp, or else you're going to have more trouble with this part. And also, don't worry about it as much while the spoon is green. That'll be easier to clean up when it's dry. But you see how much smoother we got. And I did it lightly, and I'm still not in my line, so I haven't cut too much out.
So hopefully that helps somebody. You know, try new things. There is no right or wrong way to carve a spoon. If it works for you, then go for it. My goal is to carve a spoon and give it a tool finish. So no sandpaper whatsoever. Just one less thing I have to worry about is sanding it when you're done. Plus, don't know if you know this or not, but a knife or a tool will leave a better finish on the surface of the wood than sanding will. Sanding your spoon is going to, in a sense, like fluff up the surface of the wood and the fibers, making it like, I don't know if I'm using the right word, kind of fuzzy on a very small scale, as to where a tool finish is going to give you something, smash the fibers down and compact them tight together, and you're never going to be able to achieve that glassy, smooth finish that a tool provides, a knife blade can provide with sandpaper. It's just superior, and that's why people still use planes and cutting tools instead of modern power tools. So I'm just trying to get to my line cut for now. Trying to just get it carved to the line, and after that I'll eyeball this and make sure we're straight. And that's all you can do, is eyeball it. Really, that's all I do. There's a pretty gnarly looking knot here. But this wood grain's looking pretty good. Doing the rolling cuts. That's what you call that. the spoon neck when you're doing a cut like this. That's a rolling cut. So if you see a knife called a rolling knife or a rolling sloyd knife, that's what it's referring to. I will probably cut this video and make it shorter. I noticed that the back of my spoon wasn't symmetrical on this part, so I was just making that symmetrical really quick. Because that was going to bug me. Alrighty guys, I stopped recording yesterday afternoon, back here today finishing this thing up, or continuing this thing. We're still just working on the same part. Working on the outline still. That's where we're at. Just trying to square everything up. Just want everything to be as square as possible and straight as possible. On the sides. There's a couple spots I'm not too happy with. I'll probably leave those and continue on, and we'll have to just adjust accordingly to fix that later. I'll probably have to make the handle a little bit skinnier. To fix that. About paying attention to the details. Like I said, I'm not a professional by any means. I would say that I can at least make a spoon. A usable spoon. Whether or not how good they are. I mean, they work, right? They're functional. They don't break. They're usable for long periods of time. They're just not as pretty as some of the other people's. So, I'm going to call that good for now. So the next part I do is I'm going to remove the top layer of wood on the handle and on the back side of the handle, and I'm going to try to get it even, top and bottom. And then I am going to do the same with the bowl. And at this point in time, what I do is I erase all my pencil lines with the knife, and I eyeball it from here, just what it looks like. And that's just how I do things. At this point, after I erase those lines, I just look at it and determine whether or not things are straight and flat by eyeballing it, taking it down my eyes. How do I make it look like? Eyeballing it. If you absolutely need lines to work with, then, I mean, you're gonna have to remove this wood eventually anyway, right? So, start with the top, doing these cuts here, like this, trying to get as long continuous cuts as possible. With a slicing motion. And at this point, I'm just kind of erasing the lines. I'm not getting too crazy. Just want to maintain, as you're working on your spoon, I would say maintain as smooth of a surface as you can the whole time. And that'll just make your job easier later when you go to finish your piece. I never knew what to do at the end of the spoons. I usually do something like this. See how nice that wood grain looks after the knife cuts it. Just erasing the pencil lines here with the knife. I'm not too worried about how smooth. This part's I worry about, but like over here, this is all going to be hollowed out and recarved anyway. I just like to get everything looking smooth, and so I go to cut in here and see how it's digging into the wood. Won't cut, so you want to come back from the opposite direction. And then it'll cut. This step is probably not necessary. It's just kind of like what I like to do is refine the blank a little bit. Just clean it up. The hardest part is getting the finishing cuts done without ruining the spoon and making it look good. I don't know if I'll do finishing cuts video or not, or talk about it on this video, but this will get you a spoon, and you can always sand it and let it dry. Let it dry and sand it if you want. Ain't no shame in sanding it. I'd say it's better to sand your spoon than ruin it with finishing cuts. So you try finishing it with your knife and you're having trouble and you don't want to ruin it, I would get the sandpaper out. So that's what I do for the top. You can really, it's all cleaned up now. I really like this wood grain. Looks really nice. Now we'll do the back. See that? It's digging into the wood. Come back the other direction. There's a certain direction the grain follows. Usually the top comes this way, so you want to cut this way. The back, you cut that way. The spoon bowl, I guess I could draw it on there for you. Also, the grain can change directions on you. Little knots and wavy parts in the wood. Can get a little tricky. Now I'll just do the back of the bowl. Sorry if there's traffic. Sunday's always busy for some reason out here. So as I'm doing this, the face of the spoon and the back of the spoon, I'm trying to maintain thickness. I want this to be the same thickness on this side as I do on this side. I want my lines on one side, the side lines, to match on both sides. So I'm going to constantly look at both sides and make sure they're as close as I can get them. On both sides. All of these side profile lines here. So you're going to need to stop and look at your work constantly. Ultimately, going to be more aesthetically pleasing. If it's symmetrical. And if one side's too far gone and I can't get the other side looking like the other side because it's too far gone, I'll make it look like the other side. If you're just trying to get a functional spoon and you don't really care what it looks like and you just want to get a spoon or two under your belt, I mean, from here, all you got to do is hollow out this bowl and you have a spoon. Done deal. I'm going to take it as far as I can take it and make it as nice as I can. So this spoon, ideally, the one I'm making, I'm not really sure what the, oh no. Sure what the purpose of this is going to be. Probably be a camp spoon. So if it's an eating spoon, you want it to fit in your mouth and be gentle in your mouth. You want it to be usable, right? You don't want any sharp corners. You don't want it too big. It needs to fit in your mouth and be comfortable. So you got to keep that in mind. If it's just for cooking, the crank and the spoon portion aren't as, as important in that regard. So something to think about. Like I said, if there's a lot of cuts in this video, it's because of traffic. So with the back cleaned up, the front cleaned up, the sides cleaned up, for me, when I'm looking at this, seeing if it's symmetrical, clean, and even, I can eyeball it a little easier. There's no lines throwing my eyes off. Sometimes the grain can throw you off, but that knot is really cool looking. Alright, I'm going to call that step good for now. So what I do is I cut a facet, if you want to call it a facet. I cut the corner off all the way around the spoon on the top, and I do it on the bottom. Just one big facet around the edge of the spoon. So let me see if I can show you guys this. So you want to try to hold the same angle on all the way around it, right? So find your angle. Okay. And then cut it into your spoon. Try to get it as even as possible. And you don't have to do this. You could round your handle off. Could do a lot of things. I'm just showing you what I do. And you can kind of see that facet there. That's what I'm going to call it. Coming down the handle. And I'm going to do that all the way around the spoon. So when you get to this side, gotta try to hold your same angle. The more you can do this in one long continuous cut, the better it'll look. And then you can come back and try to even it out. Remember, these are handmade. They don't have to be perfect. But this step for me helps me see the shape of the spoon, what's going on. So I did that to the handle. And we'll come down on the bowl.
I usually make the facet a little bigger on the bowl. The neck is really going to give you some trouble. The grain going different directions and changing on you. I won't worry. Don't worry about getting it too super perfect at this point in time. But you don't have to do this step. And I go around the whole spoon. Man, if I could keep this in frame, that would be great. Don't know if you can see that. See that facet on the bowl? You can see it right here. I did that all the way around. I like the way it looks. It's been a process I've done in my spoon, all my spoons pretty much at this phase. Even after doing this, I can totally change the way this handle looks. Like, it's not permanent. Do the back side. And see, now it's starting to dig into the wood. Come back from the other side. It doesn't really matter how steep or shallow you make this, if you do make it. Just make sure that you've got it the same on both sides. I've left enough meat on my spoon that if I screw up here, I have enough spoon left to fix it. Hopefully. Even if this spoon does get ruined, I'll probably still use this video because all the steps are going to apply, and even if this thing gets ruined, it's still going to be a spoon at the end of the day. Then back of the bowl, and you can carry these facets. You can do facets inside of facets and do it. Do 1, do 2, do 3, and then you get a really cool look. One that I cannot achieve. might have to adjust the camera angle. You really want to avoid your knife digging in to the wood in the wrong direction, because you really got to remove a lot of wood to fix that. And if you don't have enough there, it can really mess up your spoon. So the back side, and see, I can see where I'm wonky at, where I need flattening, what I need straightening out now. Back of the bowl, facet comes around here, all the way around back to here. Not bad. And then I need to grab a pencil. I don't have a pencil on me right now. And what I do from here is I start to hollow out the spoon bowl at this point in time. So let's do that. I'm gonna go grab a pencil. Alrighty, so we got our spoon. That's where I'm at. Gonna draw on the bowl. So I draw the edge of the bowl in this facet. You can make the edge of this spoon bowl as thick as you want. You know, as long as it's usable. If you're looking for really good spoon tutorials, I would go look at Zed Outdoors and look at the Adam Hawker spoon tutorial on Zed Outdoors, and the what's his name? Can't remember his name, but just go on Zed Outdoors and look. Okay, so I got the spoon bowl outlined, and then I'm gonna want to draw where it comes up here. I usually have trouble deciding how I'm gonna do that. Just whatever feels like it's most aesthetically appeasing. See, like I could do it like that, or I could cut it in like that, which I think I'm going to do this one. That seems to make more sense. And then we're going to use the hook knife and remove the inside of here. So what we're going to do is walder out a hole in the middle with the hook knife and get it started. And then we're going to cut it with the hook knife. In these directions. I'm going to draw them on here. And if you're getting resistance or having problems in these directions, just switch it up and try to find something that works. But generally when you're carving a spoon bowl, that's how you want to do it. So the new Mora hook knives have the tip cut off, so they don't have the sharp point. They have a little snap leather sheath. And you can modify these by grinding off this secondary bevel on the back side. Take like a Dremel or a stone or something, and from what I understand, it makes these much more effective. They don't chatter on the wood as much, but I haven't done that yet. So I dig into the spoon here. Carving grips with the hook knives can be kind of tricky. I'm doing kind of the same thing. You just want to make sure that your follow through ain't nothing in the way. You ain't gonna hit a hand or a finger. A lot of people buy a left-handed hook knife and a right-handed hook knife because it's easier for them to, you know, get on the funny angles. So we made ourselves effectively a hole in the middle, and we're gonna follow the arrows. And another way you could do this is just straight up going straight across. On camera. Go straight across. You can go across the grain of the spoon. You can actually hollow, I mean, there's no wrong way to do this. So you can go across like that. This side's going to be way easier to do for me. We're going to stay inside our line. See that? The quality of your wood that you get is gonna immensely help. Good straight grained wood. So to get this side, I'm probably gonna try to hold it. My spoon bowl carving techniques aren't very good as far as safety. So I'm cutting pretty much right at my thumb. So you could put this in a vise. You could get a left-handed hook. You could figure out different ways to hold it. Sometimes you can flip your spoon knife and kind of pivot it. You can also do a two-handed and kind of use your left hand to push it. You can come straight down. Whatever you do, just make sure you're really careful. Some people use a gouge, and the grain is preventing me from going further. So I'm going to come from the other side now. And I'm going to start sort of in that hole. In fact, I might need to make that hole a little bit longer. Don't be in a hurry. That's why it's called whittling. You're gonna whittle away. Speed will come with practice. This is hard to do on camera. keep it in frame. Trying my dangest to keep it in the lines, and then if you want to get rid of this slough, you can do that. Get some of that stuff out of the way. And I don't know if we have to worry about it right now, but you can use your fingers as like a feeler gauge to see how thin you are, how thin your spoon bowl is. Depending on the purpose of your bowl, of your spoon, cooking spoons, you know, you probably want to be a little thicker. You can effectively make it as thin as you want. But so far, it's not looking too bad. This might be kind of hard to get on camera. So the goal is, which isn't always going to work, is you want to meet both sides. So like where it starts to stop cutting and digging into the grain, you want to come from the opposite side, and you want to meet that part. And if you can't get it smooth by doing it that way, then you can come across. This part's a little tricky. Come across like that. See why some people get left-handed hook knives. Sometimes you can kind of just scrape down the whole bowl, get it pretty smooth. That's probably as thin as I'm going to make the bowl for now, because we're going to go back to the handle. We're going to spend some time on these other parts. Kind of feel around, make sure you're feeling like you're good thickness. Generally, you don't need to worry about getting it perfectly smooth at this stage. Because once it's dry, you'll be able to get a good finish on it. So for me, I'm going to try to make sure that my facets are as straight and even as possible on both sides. I'm going to try making a match on both sides. Make sure the spoon bowl is lined up straight with your handle. Make sure that this is flat and there's no bumps on it. Same with the back. Smooth out the bowl. And then spend as much time on that as you want. Get everything as smooth as possible. Get rid of all these rough spots like right here and like what I have right here. And you're gonna get this like 95% finished or more. 99% finished. And then you're gonna let it dry. Because we did this with a green piece of wood. And when it dries, this is going to change shape depending on what wood you have. It could shrink, it could twist, it could warp. And then you're going to need to spend some more time on it, finishing it. So some people would stop here and wait for it to dry and then finish, because there's a lot of material left here if some big change does happen. Me personally, in my experience, I get it as finished as I can, so I spend less time finishing it after it dries with the knife. Because with my experience, when I let the spoon dry, not a lot happens. But this could twist, it could warp, it could shrink as it dries out. So, and then if you want to just sand it from here, let it dry. Obviously, don't sand it while it's green. Let it finish drying. Give it 3 or 4 days. And just sand it how you want it. If that's the finish you want, sand it smooth. And then, oil it with some linseed oil or flaxseed oil or hemp seed oil. But for me, I'm going to get this as finished as I can before I let it dry. Just note that if you do oil it, it's going to change the color of it. If you're not really familiar with the oil you're using, some oils will turn wood yellow. It looks kind of gross. Don't use cooking oil. That stuff can go rancid, from what I've read. You could paint it when you're done. Get some milk paints, acrylic paints. You could make your own dyes and paints. You could bake it.
You can bake these in the oven, and after it dries, of course. All this is going to be after it dries. You could bake it and it'll darken the wood grain. But yeah, so that's a little tutorial on how to carve a spoon. And I'm pretty pleased with how this one turned out. So hopefully yours turned out okay. And hopefully you gained something from this video. And yeah, that's how to carve a spoon with cheap tools. All we used was that axe, that saw, and these two knives.